finally we are here, and I'm so happy to host you on the Ravit Show. But for our audience, I'm pretty sure you're not a new face to the community. People know you, people know Airbyte, but still, just a little background about yourself. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Michel Tricot. I'm the co-founder and I'm the CEO of Airbyte. And yeah, been working on Airbyte for the past 3 years now. I mean, in
Nice.
reality, it's a little bit less than that because we had a few pivots at the beginning, but
Mm,
that's where we're at. And yeah, I'm originally from France. I moved in the US in 2011, and I've been there since then, and always been in the data space, different scale, like finance scale, internet scale, IoT
nice.
scale, and yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And what your experiences have been, is what we see as well with Airbyte. Like in the last 3 years, we've seen the growth for Airbyte. And I've been closely following it, not, and that's how I, said this was long due since, because it was since the initial stage I've known you and John. So it's pretty cool to see how Airbyte has a non-stop growth there, and still going very quick in the market and making those strides. So pretty good stuff that Airbyte and team is doing. Um, Also, Michelle, I wanted to, definitely I'll be asking more about, the state of data survey that you all recently came up with. But before that, I'll take a step back and ask about how did you come up with the idea of Airbyte? Like, where did that idea generation happen? I'm pretty sure the audience would love to learn a little about that as well.
Yeah, I think I grew a little bit tired of rebuilding the same system over and over again over the past like since I started my career in 27, in 2007. Every time I would
Mm,
go start a new data project, and it was always the same thing. You build a connector, you put your data somewhere, the connector breaks, you need to fix it, you monitor it, etc., etc., and then you add more and more connectors. And I did it. Yeah, I was at a company called FactSet, very big on like financial data,
yeah,
same problem. I was at
exactly.
LiveRamp, same problem. I was at RideOS, same problem. And at some point, yeah, that's when John and I, we've been working, like not working together, but we had a few side projects together starting 2013 and
Nice.
2019. That's when we say, okay, both of us have the same type of problem. We always struggle with bringing data into systems, and
Yeah.
let's fix it once and for all for everyone.
Oh my, that's
So
amazing. It's yeah, it's pretty interesting. Obviously, and it wouldn't happen if you wouldn't have been, facing those problems day in and out. You all have faced it, you and John, and that's why you all found that common ground that this is it. Now it's time to take a step in fix, and you all have fixed it for so many companies out there. So yeah, we'll definitely come on the numbers as well, about the growth that everybody has seen. But to start with, we recently saw the state of data survey. I was happy to provide a quote for it, so I feel honored by that I could do that, because it's one of the best reports that come out almost every year that y'all do. So the positive sentiments towards Airboy, what I've seen is pretty impressive. But at the same time, do you see a lot of companies moving from other ELT solutions? What's your take there? Would love to learn a little about that.
yeah, so I think we got about 900 people on the survey. We tried
Yeah,
to, I mean, of course, we were the one doing it, but we tried to be very unbiased and just putting the raw data, not trying to just go for our own community, but other communities. So we had a good sense of what's happening. The other
exactly.
thing is there are people, yes, that are moving from closed source solution. I think right now we at a point where people are sitting in between multiple chairs, like they are testing multiple solution in parallel, and whether it's closed source, whether it's open source, or whether it's just internally built. And I think that's what we see today. Now, with regard to Airbyte, our goal is really replacing what people are building internally and bit by bit grabbing what comes from the closed source side. And I think, yeah, when you see that people are just, I think we have 6,000 deployments every single month, and it keeps growing every single month. So there is a trend that is people by default, they try to build something, and with Airbyte, they don't have to build it. And that's the default behavior for data engineers. And I think right at that point, that's what is just pushing the adoption of like open source ELT solution.
Okay.
And
yeah,
and there is so little friction. An engineer can just download the code, deploy it, and they don't need to ask for permission. It saves them time. They don't have to build a Salesforce connector. Everybody is happy.
Okay, pretty interesting. And thanks for sharing those insights. And I'm sure. First of all, the report. I like how you all kind of go out and keep that even if it's coming from Airbyte, but still you all have a very vendor neutral ground. I've seen the report, and that kind of brings up a lot of interest for the others as well in the space, in the data community. They kind of feel that they can look up to something which is even produced by Airbyte, but still there's so much info about each and every vendor, about the communities they can follow, what's growing, what's happening, and it's like a good refresher for every data engineer to look at the things that they could do. I saw even podcast being there, newsletters, and everything was mentioned there. But coming back to something what you were talking about, which is around the ELT solutions. So can you share any of the experiences, like any of the common challenges that you've seen companies face, transitioning from other ELT solutions to Airbyte, and how do you address those types of challenges? Because I'm pretty sure you might be getting there might be so many companies, enterprise leaders, data team coming back to you and saying that, these are the problems that we face. How do we solve that? So how do you do that, Michel?
Yeah. So there is obviously the first initial one, which is when you're using a solution, in general, that solution has some opinion about what the data looks like. If you look, for example, at Fivetran, you will have, they have an opinion about what the data should look like, how it should translate into table into your warehouse. And after that, people just build their data pipelines and their data processing on top of this particular schema. So that is always something that we see with our customers and with our open source user is how do they bring Airbyte and how do they create that compatibility with the previous schema when they want to just replace an existing system. So this is I would say this is a challenge. Actually, recently we had a Hack Week project from Airbyte, and one of the engineers just was experimenting with, can we do some automated translation between what Airbyte generates and what, for example, a Fivetran ERD will look like, and how close can we get to that, so to ease the migration. But this will be, I would say, the one of the pain points that people might have, but it's solvable. And that's also why, we're working a lot with DBT so that we can very quickly develop like migration models if necessary. The other one, and that comes more in larger companies when they move not from the modern data stack, but more from legacy ETL and ELT solution, is that they were buying end-to-end solution. So something that was doing everything from ingestion up to dashboarding. And then they say, oh, yes, I want the modern data stack. I want to get I just bought my new fancy Snowflake, but now I suddenly have to deal with 5 different vendors. And that's generally a bit of a problem for them, because when they see Airbyte or when they see Fivetran, they're just, okay, but I also want to transform my data. What should I do? And then they need to talk with DBT, or they need to find another vendor to do the transformation piece. So I would say that's a challenge for some companies, but more for like enterprise level or high mid-market companies, which is you're replacing one solution by multiple smaller ones.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense in terms of, obviously those big enterprises would have so much in the background that they might be working around with. And if there's something which is where they're wanting that change to happen, it will take time. And obviously, Airbyte kind of sits in there. Obviously, you all are closely working with DBT to make that happen as well. So it does make all sense. Thanks for those points, Michelle. That brings me to
And
another
maybe
question. Yeah,
maybe just one last thing is
yeah, sure.
some people move from a cloud cloud hosted or SaaS solution, and
Mm,
Airbyte is open source, meaning that there is a component where you need to suddenly operate a new system, and
exactly.
but they generally make that choice because one, it's cheaper to to operate than
Mm,
a cloud solution because you have more control over your cost, especially as your data is growing. And the second one is that gives you a lot more security around your data, and that removes a lot of red
mm.
tape for using a platform. So that's both a challenge and something that people really enjoy with Airbyte.
No, I think definitely it all makes sense there. Another quick question, something which is kind of related to it is how do we see any ELT platform, addressing the long tail of connectors? What's your take on that, Michelle?
Yeah. So that's funny because I wrote an article very early in the life
Mm,
of Airbyte, and everything with regard to connector, you need to see that as it's a sequence of layer. And when
mm-hmm.
we build Airbyte, we build it around a protocol, which is the lowest possible level you can think of for moving data from point A to point B. And then what you do is you
Right.
just build abstraction on top of it to address families of connector. And today we've got to a point where people can build connector with just a UI. And so
Mm,
that's the no-code connector builder. I think we have about we released it just 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we have about 700 like live pipelines with just
oh,
connectors that were built. So that's pretty nice. But what people need is the simplicity of adding their own connector and maintaining these connectors. So the more abstraction we can build on top of that protocol, the more we will be
mm,
able to address the long tail, the more we will be able to empower the community to share like this little snippet of YAML that allows them to just extract data from a source. So that's I think that's the only way an ELT ETL platform can actually solve the data movement problem is
mm.
if you provide the ability to people to just customize, edit, and you give them the agency to just move and change their connectors. One thing we're doing on our side, we're also is something we started recently, which is every single customer that comes to Airbyte, if they ask for one connector that we don't have,
Mm.
we build it. So
Oh,
it's like
wow.
basically this on-demand connector. But we can do it because we've built the abstraction. If it was like
Yeah.
building Python code to do that connector, we would not do that. Now that we've built this
Ah.
abstraction, we can do it, and it takes us what 15 minutes because the people know how to use the no code and know how to read the documentation, and they can do it. So that's a pretty big deal for us. And after that, it's
No,
like
yeah.
our community. How do we crowdsource the development of these connectors?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's one of the, also the benefits of having that open source community where you can learn and you can build something together. But at the same time, this is a very interesting feature that I see, obviously, on demand. Like, I haven't heard any of the companies ever doing that, building like, or it's almost like a product that you're building for something that a customer needs or if there's a requirement. And maybe that's one of the reasons why we see the scale for y'all as well at Airbyte, where you'll have so many connectors, but at the same time, there's so many companies also using it. So what's the number? And okay, I would love to, obviously for our audience, I know it, like behind the scenes, I've followed you all, but from start of your journey from 2019, like if we go by year by year, what's like the if you have like the numbers in your obviously if you remember the numbers, Michelle, we would love to learn about how many companies started using it in the first year, second year, and the third year.
Yeah. So let's. I think we need to. Yeah. Okay, I can do that. So We released Airbyte end of. I'm going back into
Yeah.
my memories on numbers. So we released
Put you on
Airbyte.
spot. Yeah.
We released Airbyte in October 2020, and
Right.
pretty quickly we started to get what 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 users of Airbyte, and they were just deploying Airbyte. They were just experimenting with a few connectors. And to be clear, when we released Airbyte, it was very, very alpha. We wanted to get the community insight from there. In 2021, so we began 2021 with maybe I don't think we can even talk about daily active users. These were more like people experimenting. So I'm just going to look at end of 2021,
Wow.
beginning of 2022. We had maybe 700 daily active users, 500 daily active users, meaning company that have taken Airbyte and make it part of their stack. And keep in mind that end of 2021, the product was still in the very early phase.
Early stage, yeah.
End of 2022, we had about 2,500 daily active user. And today we have about 3,500 daily active user.
Oh my.
So it just continues to grow and it grows really fast. But that also makes sense. Like what you see, you have people who wanted to try Airbyte in 2021 who was not solving their problem because yes, the platform was not as mature as they expected. And now it becomes more and more mature. So they come back and boom, they start adopting. So yeah, that would be approximately the numbers. We're about to hit 100,000 deployments of Airbyte. So a deployment is just someone who downloads Airbyte and runs it once. So that's really what we call our top of the funnel for open source. So yeah, doing pretty good there.
Yeah, no, I think first of all, congrats on building something which is and that's one of the reasons I mentioned. I've seen the growth, and growth is like this is hyper growth, to be honest, and for all the good reasons. Obviously, I'm pretty sure one reason is also, like you mentioned in the previous answer, is about creating a connector on demand, which is where I'm pretty sure if there's a company that comes to you or there's a contributor that comes to you and ask for a connector, I'm pretty sure there might be 4 companies who would also want to use that connector, and now they've found it on Airbyte. So that kind of takes off very quickly. So well done on that, Michel. Definitely very interesting, and thanks for sharing those numbers. But again, that kind of also puts me, kind of makes me curious as well. And something related to that is about the Airbyte 1.0, which is not yet out. So what's next? When is it happening? I'm pretty sure the community also wants to learn a little about that. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So 1.0 for us is really a product and usage milestone. We know what we want to do for 1.0. And right now, what we've been doing over the past 2.5 years was really focusing on building the fundamental features of a data integration platform. So that includes, something as simple as column selection, something as hard as schema migration and schema evolution. It's also about speed, like performances. We've that's something we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about in the next few weeks, but we've done a massive revamp of the performances of Airbyte for replicating data from databases to warehouses. That's going to beat every single system on the market. So stay tuned for that. But
yeah.
And so these are fundamentals. But then you also have, and this I'm talking for open source, especially is the ease of deployment, the ease of operation is also important. And we want to have that for 1.0. So we have something that works today, but it still requires people to just hack around a little bit to just how do you monitor that within your monitoring tool, et cetera, et cetera. And we want to make sure that there is a sense of you download Airbyte, it can run on your Kubernetes cluster, it connects to your services, and it just works. Here, you still require you to just dive a little bit into configuration files, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we want to get to for 1.0 is it's a fully productionizable product. So today it is, but it requires people to work around some like how do you connect to a vault to protect your keys. We want that to be part of a 1.0 because security of your data is key.
Nice.
So that's the kind of thing we want to be building before we do 1.0. Now cloud, although it's based on like a version that is not 1.0 of open source, is general availability because we've built all of that internally for cloud. So now it's just how do we bring that and make it available on the open source distribution as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think these are pretty interesting points that you've shared, and definitely makes sense to have a 1.0 because it will be a blast for at least the folks who are using Airbytes. There might be, like, there are so many capabilities that they will have. So definitely looking forward to that. Thanks for sharing it first on the Ravit Show. So I'm happy. The secret sauce. Now people get the secret sauce and also get something to learn more about what they can expect in 1.0 Airbyte. So definitely looking forward to that. But another question around, like, shifting gears a bit here in terms of talking a little about the data security and privacy as well. So how does Airbyte ensure data security and privacy for its users? And at the same time, I'm pretty sure if folks would love to learn if there are any specific measures or certifications that are in place that you can share, Michel.
Yeah. So for this, we need to look at Airbyte from two different points of view. One, which is open source, and also our self-managed offer, and cloud, because both are very, very different. For open source and self-managed, we build Airbyte in a secure way, but now because we don't control the environment in which it runs, it becomes the responsibility of the person who is deploying Airbyte to run Airbyte in a secure environment. But this is actually why people are using Airbyte open source. It's because they trust their environment so much around security that they know they can run Airbyte safely within their infrastructure, and they have all the security check in place to make sure that Airbyte open source runs and it's secure. For cloud, I mean, we obviously have a very secure architecture. We're building around data, and data has to be secured. So this is where, we have very specific rules that we've hired for with regard to privacy, especially as people are moving data within Europe or within the US. We want to make sure that privacy-wise, we're doing everything to protect our customer. And we also have one person who's just dedicated on security. Like, how is cloud secure? Like, are we rotating keys? Are we protecting our vaults? Are we monitoring our vaults? Are we monitoring access? So all of that is there. And we very early on in the life cycle of Airbyte Cloud, we went for like SOC 2 compliance, ISO compliance, etc., etc. So we have checks and in place internally to make sure that whoever is using cloud can be confident that yes, we are secure and that we are protecting privacy. And also we never store data, so that makes things a little bit simpler for us.
No, I think this is very important information, and one of the things that obviously we've been listening in is around data governance, data security. So you all have all the measures in place, which is very cool. So thanks for sharing that, Michel. Also, another question around Airbyte, since we've been obviously you've spoken about the first 3 years, the early 3 years, and to be honest, I would say it's 2 years where you all actually put things together towards the end of 2021. So, but how has it been? You shared till now, but how does, like, what's your mission in the next 3 years? I would love to learn a little about that. For Airbyte, what does the mission look like? But you mentioned about 1.0, definitely, but for the next few years, how do you look at Airbyte growing?
So 1.0 is about getting very strong security fundamentals and feature for data integration. I think what's going to happen in the next 3 years for us is going to be more around the integration downstream. So how do we provide more visibility on where the data is going, where it's coming from? So everything with regard to data lineage. We've been focused a lot on data ingestion, which is the left side of what you do with data. We also want to look at what can we do on the right side, which is how do you activate that data? So we don't want to do like dashboarding or anything like that, or like BI, but everything that is related to, for example, what we call reverse ETL, which is the ability to pull data from warehouses and sending into services. This is also something we want to look at, because the problem that we need to solve is very similar, which is there is a huge amount of places where you can push your data. And the more you're able to push it, the better your company is going to become. So we want to see how much can we apply of what we've learned on the ingestion side, and how can we bring it into like the pushing side. So this is a big deal for us. And this way, we basically create all the pipes for the data to move from point A to point B, and then we integrate with all the other applications that are building the intelligence on top of it. The other piece is obviously it's what do we do around AI, because AI is probably the biggest consumer of data. So how do we bring data not just for analytics purposes or operational purposes, but for training algorithm, creating knowledge base for AI algorithms. So that's also a big deal for us in the next few years.
Yeah, and I think rightly mentioned, obviously, first of all, data integration, one of the most important things out there. And I see what your focus is. So definitely looking forward to see how it, kind of evolves. But just a quick question on the data integration bit as well. We've seen the landscape evolving like very much and rapidly, to be honest. So what are some emerging trends or challenges that you foresee in the industry? And you did mention a little about how Airbyte is obviously preparing to address them, but is there anything that you would like to share?
So I hope I'm not stating the obvious here, but I think Iceberg, Delta, like all the data lakes technologies are going to become a lot more, are going to become the default of where you push your data. So you can still push data into data warehouses, but warehouses are going to push a lot more for being compatible with these files, because this is like the unique language for talking to data. Like SQL is one language, but having your data that is stored in a way that is queryable, that is efficient, this is the way to go. And I think that's what we're going to see in the next 3 years. Now, who wins between Iceberg and Delta? I mean, the future will tell us. I don't know. I think right now we need to work with both, but that will become the default for where you push your data. The thing that I believe is going to become a lot more, we're going to be a lot better at managing unstructured data, everything that is text data, and that will be powered by AI. Like how do you extract information from an English text, and how do you structure that data so that your analyst can actually do something with these insights? And I wonder what kind of companies are going to be built on top of data lakes, data warehouse, to actually not just transform the data, but structure the data so that you can do automation on top of it. So that's going to be, I think, a big deal in the data space for the next few years. But it's only enabled because we developed the technology to extract data from text in a way that makes sense to people.
Yeah, no, I think definitely good points there, Michel. Thanks for sharing that. Also, when talking about a lot of data, unstructured data, structured data, that kind of brings me to another, and you've spoken a bit about it, but another question, which is like a very common question nowadays, which is around AI moment. So how do we approach this new AI moment? What's your thought on it, and where do you see it in the next 1 to 2 years? Like, I'll just keep it, because with AI, things are kind of evolving so quickly. Every company wants to actually, adapt AI. I saw a survey recently. It said like 75% of the companies now in 2023 want to have some AI feature in their product to offer to their customers. So that, and I've been, hearing a lot about that, but how do we approach it? What's your take on that, Michel?
Yeah, I think AI is going to go through something very similar to what happened to data over the past 5 years, which is it's going to be a very heterogeneous environment where you will have, I don't know, 10 different ways to do vector stores. You will have 100 different ways to do embedding. And the same way we're talking about the modern data stack today, I think there will be the modern, I don't know if we can even call it modern, but like, what is the AI stack? And what I'm very curious to see is how will that break down between like data ingestion piece, data activation piece, data storage, and embedding, LLM, like even the workflow managers. How will all the things that we've solved today for data are going to apply or are going to have some flavor of it in the AI world? And I think the next 3 years are going to be people should keep their option open, because you don't know who is going to be the players that you want to be working with, and everyone will have a small differentiator, but I think the market for every one of these categories is going to consolidate, and then you want to make sure that you're working with the best player over there. But right now, keep your option open, try the best one today, but make sure that you can evolve in the future. Like, don't settle on what your stack should look like, because it's going to evolve a lot just in the next 2 months.
Oh wow, I like that perspective. Like, now since you mentioned, now I kind of see that, oh, you're right about, something which could be like the modern data stack we're seeing. It could be the AI stack, or it could be something else which would be created, and obviously there might be many more categories which might come in, and how it will picture, and how how data companies would also be kind of transformed with another player in there. So it's interesting. We are in this interesting times for sure. So can't wait. But thanks for sharing that point. Many of the times what happens is a lot of leaders who come on the show, they share such interesting points, and after 6 months, a year, or after 18 months, we see that happening for real. And that's when I go back and I'm like, oh, did I hear this? Was it a deja vu or something? But things kind of manifest very quickly. But thanks for sharing that, Michel. Quickly, getting on to something which is around, we've spoken at length, but I'm pretty sure audience would also love to learn a little more about Airbyte. Are there any resources that they can hop on and learn more about Airbyte connectors, ELT, ETL?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is obviously our GitHub repo. It's okay. I think it's Airbyte. It's Airbyte HQ/Airbyte. That's a very big one. We also have an education hub on Airbyte. So we try to publish a lot of high quality tutorial, high quality thought pieces around data. So even if people are very beginner in the data space, they can learn a ton on Airbyte. Like, we try to put as much resources as possible. And yeah, and we just recently created one for like, how do you use Airbyte in conjunction with Daxter, in conjunction with LangChain. So how do you actually create the first version of an AI stack? And yeah, that would be probably the place I would start with, like the repo and our content hub.
All right, that's pretty cool. What I'll do is, obviously, when we push this live, I'll share all the links with the audience in the comment section, so they can actually go and learn more about it. One last question, Michel, for you is, if people want to reach out to you, where can they reach out? Where can they learn more about what's new, what's coming up? Because you're an interesting personality,
Thank you.
a great data professional out there. So I'm pretty sure a lot of folks would want to reach out to you. So what's the best way to get to you?
Yeah. So one thing that we've done since the beginning of Airbyte is to stay very close to our community. So basically, we have a Slack channel. A Slack
Nice.
workspace community
Hmm.
open to everyone. So it's available on our website. You can just click on it, and from there, you can talk to me directly. So I don't
Perfect.
think you can do anything simpler than that.
That's the best. So reach out to Michelle on the Slack channel, and you get to talk and learn more and more about Airbyte. But this was amazing, Michelle. It was such a pleasure hosting you today on the Ravit Show. I can't wait to have a 2.0 session where we and this definitely we'll talk about it more when 1.0 Airbyte is released. In we are in that interesting space as well, where there might be many more um, I would say there might be many more innovations that might have happened in the AI space, but not only just that, also the data integration space might have evolved very much. So we'll definitely have another session that time. But this was fun. Thanks for coming on the show again. It was such a pleasure to host you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ravit, for having me.
Awesome. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It was such a pleasure.